My husband didn't know I learned Excel. For 36 years, he kept the family finances locked away in his home office, telling me I wouldn't understand the numbers. And then, at his retirement party in front of 70 guests, I stood up with a spreadsheet that revealed exactly where $1.8 million had gone. What happened next changed everything. Welcome to Twisted ZYP Stories. Before we dive in, drop a comment telling us where you're listening from today. We love connecting with our community from all over the world. Now, settle in for this one, because it's a story about numbers, secrets, and the kind of betrayal that hides in plain sight. I met Thomas Sullivan at a company picnic in June of 1989. I was 26 years old, working as an office manager for a small insurance agency in Columbus, Ohio. Tom was 30, ambitious, working his way up the corporate ladder at Midwest Manufacturing. He had dark hair going silver at the temples even then, wire-rimmed glasses, and a confidence that made me feel safe, secure. He courted me with dinner dates where he always picked up the check, weekend drives in his new Buick, talks about our future. He had plans, big plans. VP by 40, he told me, CFO by 50, early retirement at 65 with enough money to travel the world. All he needed was the right partner, someone stable, someone who understood that his career had to come first. I said yes when he proposed after 10 months. We married in a small ceremony that October. I was so proud walking down the aisle toward this man who had his whole life mapped out. The first sign should have been the bank account. 2 weeks after the wedding, Tom suggested I quit my job. "We don't need two incomes," he said. "I make enough for both of us. You should focus on making our house a home." I hesitated. I loved my job, loved the independence of my own paycheck, but Tom was persuasive. "Think about when we have children," he said. "You'll want to be home with them anyway. Might as well start now." So I quit. And then he set up our finances, his way. One checking account, his name only. He gave me a household credit card with a $1,500 limit. "For groceries and necessities," he explained. "I'll handle everything else. The mortgage, utilities, investments, retirement. You don't need to worry about any of it." "I'm good with numbers," I protested weakly. "I can help." He patted my hand. "Sweetheart, I appreciate that, but I do this for a living. Trust me, it's better if I handle it. You've got enough on your plate." And just like that, I was shut out of our financial life. We tried for children for 8 years. 8 years of temperature charts and ovulation kits and fertility specialists and the kind of hope that breaks you a little more each month when it doesn't happen. The doctors never found anything definitively wrong with either of us. "Sometimes," they said, "it just doesn't work out." Tom took it hard. He wanted kids, wanted to be a father. But after the last failed IVF attempt in 1997, when I was 34 and he was 38, he just stopped talking about it. Something shifted between us after that. Not dramatic. Just a slow cooling. A distance that widened 1 degree at a time until I looked up one day and realized we lived like polite roommates who occasionally shared a bed. His career flourished. VP at 42, just like he'd planned. CFO at 51, ahead of schedule. The money came with it. We moved to a bigger house in Upper Arlington, a beautiful colonial with 4 bedrooms we'd never fill. Tom joined the country club. We had a vacation home in Hilton Head, but I never saw the numbers. Tom would come home with news, a bonus, a stock option payout, a raise, and he'd smile and say, "We're doing very well." Then he'd disappear into his home office with his laptop and his filing cabinets that were always locked. When I asked about retirement planning, he'd say, "All taken care of." When I suggested I might go back to work, just part-time, maybe at the library, he'd frown. "Why? We don't need the money. What would people think, the CFO's wife working at the library? Just enjoy your life, Maggie." So I did. Or I tried to. I volunteered at the hospital. I took watercolor classes. I had lunch with other wives who also didn't quite know what to do with themselves. I filled my days with activities that felt like they mattered but somehow never added up to a life that felt like mine. The years stacked up. 20 years, 25, 30. I was 56, then 58, then 60. Tom was planning his retirement for when he turned 65. "Just 5 more years," he'd say. "Then we'll finally have time to travel, to do all those things we've talked about." But something bothered me. Little things. The way Tom would take phone calls in his office with the door closed. The way he'd quickly minimize screens on his laptop when I walked by. The way he'd started taking solo golf trips, 3 or 4 times a year, always to the same resort in Scottsdale. Business networking, he'd explain, important for the transition to retirement. I told myself I was being paranoid. This was Tom. Stable, reliable Tom. The man who'd handled our finances perfectly for 36 years. And then came March of 2020. COVID-19. The world shut down. Our grandson Tyler was 23, fresh out of college with a degree in data analytics, living in Cleveland. When Ohio locked down, he asked if he could shelter with us for a few weeks. Of course, I said. Tyler had always been close to me, the child of Tom's brother who died young. I'd helped raise him. Tom was working from home, locked in his office on video calls all day. Tyler and I rattled around the rest of the house. He was always on his laptop, working on freelance projects, and one afternoon in April, I asked him what he was doing. Building a dashboard in Excel, he said. Tracking COVID data by county. Want to see? I didn't really understand what he showed me, all those formulas and pivot tables and charts that updated automatically, but something about it fascinated me. The way numbers could tell stories. The way patterns emerged from data. Can you teach me? I asked. Tyler lit up. Absolutely. Grandma Maggie, you're going to love this. We started with the basics, simple spreadsheets, basic formulas. But Tyler was a patient teacher, and I discovered something. I was good at this. Really good. My brain, which I'd been told for years didn't need to worry about complicated things, came alive with the logic of it. After Tyler went back to Cleveland that July, I kept going. I found free courses online, YouTube tutorials, community college classes offered on Zoom. I learned VLOOKUP and conditional formatting and data validation. I learned how to spot patterns, anomalies, inconsistencies. Tom never noticed. He was so absorbed in his own work, managing a company through a pandemic, dealing with supply chain crises and layoffs. When he saw me at my laptop, he probably assumed I was on Facebook or shopping online. If he'd looked closer, he would have seen Excel spreadsheets, but he never looked closer. I'm not sure when the idea first occurred to me. Maybe it was in 2021, when Tom came home excited about a new investment he'd made. Big returns, he said, really big. But when I asked about it, he waved me off. Too complicated to explain. Or maybe it was in 2022, when I found a credit card statement in the recycling bin. Not our household card, a different one I'd never seen before. The charges were all at restaurants and hotels. When I asked Tom about it, he said it was a corporate card, for business expenses. Don't worry about it. But I did worry. So one Tuesday in September of 2022, when Tom was at the office and I knew he'd be in meetings all afternoon, I went into his home office. The filing cabinets were locked, as always. But I'd watched him open them 1,000 times over the years, and the key hung on a hook inside his desk drawer, tucked behind old pens and paper clips. My hands shook as I unlocked the first cabinet. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for, but I started photographing documents with my phone, bank statements, investment account summaries, tax returns, anything with numbers. It took me 3 months to get through everything. I could only do it when Tom was definitely going to be gone for hours. Each time, I'd photograph documents, lock everything back up, and return to my own laptop to input the data into spreadsheets I kept in a hidden folder. What I found made my stomach turn. Tom earned $480,000 a year. I knew that, roughly. What I didn't know was where it all went. Our household expenses, the mortgage, utilities, property taxes, my credit card, added up to about $8,000 a month. Call it $100,000 a year. His retirement accounts showed regular contributions. Good. But then I found the other accounts. Accounts in his name only. An LLC called Sullivan Holdings, another called Buckeye Investments, a brokerage account with statements sent to a P.O. box I'd never heard of. Over 2 years, I built a complete picture of our finances. The real picture. I taught myself forensic accounting through YouTube videos. I learned to trace money flows, to spot shell companies, to understand what was legal and what wasn't. What I discovered was this. Over the past 15 years, Tom had systematically moved $1.8 million out of our joint assets and into accounts that were his alone. Money that should have been community property, 50-50, was now entirely in his name. The methods were clever. He'd claim business expenses on our taxes, then funnel the deductions into his private accounts. He'd report bonuses as retirement contributions, but the money would go to his LLC. He'd underreport his income on documents I signed, always presenting them at the last minute, always saying, "Just sign here, honey, I've already reviewed everything." For 15 years, I'd signed tax returns without reading them, trusted him completely. The golf trips to Scottsdale? The credit card I'd found? That led me to another discovery, and this one hurt worse than the money. Her name was Jennifer, 39 years old, a manager at the Scottsdale resort. I found hotel receipts showing Tom had paid for a one-bedroom casita, rented monthly, for the past 4 years. Not room charges, a lease. I found Venmo payments to Jennifer for furniture, for a car payment, for something labeled Our Future. I sat in my car in the hospital parking lot, where I volunteered and cried for an hour. 36 years of marriage. I'd given him my 20s, my 30s, my 40s, my 50s. I'd trusted him with everything. But alongside the hurt, something else grew. Something cold and sharp and clear. I wasn't that young woman anymore who'd believed she didn't understand numbers. I understood them perfectly now. And these numbers told a story of fraud, of betrayal, of a man who'd spent 15 years stealing from his wife while making her feel grateful for his care. I kept my discovery secret. I didn't confront him. Instead, I did what Tyler had taught me. I gathered data. I built my case. I consulted with a divorce attorney, quietly. Her name was Rebecca Cho, and she specialized in complex asset division. When I showed her my spreadsheets, her eyes widened. "This is forensic accounting work," she said. "Did you hire someone?" "I did this," I told her. She looked at me with something like awe. "Mrs. Sullivan, with this documentation, we can prove fraud. In Ohio, if a spouse dissipates marital assets, the court can award you more than 50% to make you whole." "But there's something else," she leaned forward. "Did you know your husband is planning to retire in 8 months?" I knew he turned 65 next June. He'd been talking about his retirement party for a year. "Once he retires and starts drawing from these accounts," Rebecca said, "it becomes much harder to trace. And if he's planning to leave you, and I suspect he might be based on these patterns, he'll have moved everything beyond reach." I felt something settle in my chest, a decision, clicking into place. "What do we do?" I asked. "We wait," she said. "We let him have his party, and then we strike." The next 8 months were the strangest of my life. I went through the motions of being Tom's wife. I smiled when he talked about retirement. I asked questions about his party plans. I played my role. But every day, I updated my spreadsheets. Every week, I met with Rebecca. Every month, we refined our strategy. Tom planned a huge retirement party. He rented the ballroom at the country club. He invited 70 people, colleagues, neighbors, his golf buddies, a few family members. He ordered a full open bar and a sit-down dinner. He had a video made, a retrospective of his career. The party was on a Saturday evening in June of 2024. I wore a navy blue dress Tom had approved. I smiled and greeted guests. I listened to speeches about what a brilliant financial mind my husband had, what an asset he'd been to the company, what a lucky woman I was to have such a successful husband entering retirement. The program called for Tom to give remarks after dinner. He stood at the microphone, handsome in his suit, silver hair perfect, and talked about his career, his achievements, his pride in the company, his excitement for the next chapter. And then he paused and smiled at me. "I couldn't have done any of this without my wife Maggie," he said, and people applauded. "She's been my rock for 36 years, my support system, the person who made home a place I could always return to." More applause. I smiled. I'd practiced this smile. "And now," Tom continued, "we get to enjoy the fruits of all that hard work together. Travel, relaxation, time to finally just be." He raised his glass. "To new beginnings." Everyone raised their glasses. "To new beginnings." I stood up. Tom looked surprised. "Honey," he said, "you don't need to." I walked to the microphone. Tom stepped aside, still smiling, probably thinking I was going to give some sweet speech about what a wonderful husband he was. I pulled a folded piece of paper from my purse. I unfolded it. It was a single page, a summary sheet from my analysis, printed in clear 12-point font. "I'm so glad everyone's here tonight," I said, "because I have some numbers I'd like to share." The room went quiet. Tom's smile faltered. "For 36 years," I continued, "my husband has told me not to worry about finances, that he had it handled, that I didn't need to understand the complicated details." Tom reached for my arm. "Maggie," he said quietly, "what are you doing?" I stepped away from him. "But 5 years ago, I started learning. Excel, data analysis, forensic accounting. And do you know what I learned?" I held up the paper. "I learned that over the past 15 years, Tom moved $1.8 million of our marital assets into accounts in his name only. I learned that he underreported his income on tax returns I signed. I learned that he created shell companies to hide money from me." Gasps rippled through the room. Tom's face went white. "I also learned," I said, my voice steady, "that my husband has maintained a residence in Scottsdale, Arizona, for the past 4 years. A casita at a golf resort, where he's been living with a woman named Jennifer, who's 39 years old, when he takes his monthly golf trips." Tom lunged for the microphone, but I held firm. "Tomorrow morning," I said, "my attorney will be filing for divorce. The documentation has already been submitted to the court. All of this," I held up the paper again, "has been provided to the IRS as well, because it turns out that hiding marital assets is fraud." The room erupted. People talking, shouting questions. Tom stood frozen, his mouth opening and closing. I turned to him. "For 36 years, you made me feel stupid, incapable, like I couldn't understand something as simple as our own finances. But I understand perfectly now, Tom. Every number, every lie, every dollar you stole." I looked out at the 70 guests, at their shocked faces. "If anyone needs me, I'll be at my attorney's office Monday morning. The house is already in my name as of yesterday. Thank you, community property laws, and I've changed the locks." I walked out of that ballroom with nothing but my purse and the navy blue dress, and it felt like flying. The divorce took 14 months. Tom fought hard. He hired expensive lawyers who tried to claim the shell companies were legitimate business investments, that I'd signed all the tax returns and therefore had knowledge, that I was a scorned wife making false accusations. But I had the spreadsheets, I had the documentation, I had proof of every transaction, every transfer, every hidden dollar. Rebecca was brilliant. She brought in forensic accountants who confirmed my work. She deposed Tom's colleagues, his golf buddies, the resort manager in Scottsdale. She built an airtight case. In the end, the judge ruled that Tom had committed fraud and dissipation of marital assets. I was awarded 65% of everything. The house, which was worth $800,000, more than half of his retirement accounts, a portion of his pension when he started collecting it, and damages for the fraud. Tom had to pay my legal fees, all $70,000 of them. The last I heard, he'd moved to Scottsdale. He and Jennifer broke up 6 months after the divorce was finalized. Apparently, she wasn't interested once the money situation became clear. He's working as a consultant now because he can't afford to actually retire. Meanwhile, I'm 62 years old and I've started a business. Sullivan Financial Consulting. I help women over 50 understand their finances, find hidden assets, and prepare for divorce if they need to. I charge $150 an hour, and I'm booked solid 3 months out. I bought a condo in German Village, a beautiful restored brick building with tall windows and a garden out back. Every morning, I wake up and check my bank account, with my name on it, and see numbers that represent my work, my effort, my future. I still use Excel every single day. Those spreadsheets that saved my life are now saving other women's lives too. If you're listening to this and something feels wrong in your marriage, if you're being told not to worry about the finances, if you're being shut out of decisions about your own money, I want you to hear this clearly. Trust your instincts. Start gathering information. Learn the skills you need to protect yourself. Here's what I tell my clients. First, get copies of everything. Tax returns, bank statements, investment accounts, credit card bills. Take photos with your phone if you have to. Second, Open your own bank account at a different bank. Start setting aside money, even $20 a week. Third, learn. Free Excel courses are everywhere online. YouTube will teach you everything I learned. Fourth, find an attorney who specializes in complex divorce. Many offer free consultations. Fifth, and this is important, document everything. Keep a journal, note dates, times, conversations, save emails and texts. Evidence matters. And sixth, be patient. Don't confront until you're ready. I spent 2 years gathering evidence before I made my move. Those 2 years made all the difference. I never thought at 60 years old that I'd be starting over. I thought my life was set, that I'd spend retirement traveling with Tom, playing the role of the grateful wife whose husband had taken such good care of her. Instead, I'm 62, running a business, helping other women, and building a life that's entirely mine. My calendar is full. My bank account is healthy. My future belongs to me. Last month, Tyler, my grandson who taught me Excel, came to visit. He's thriving now, working for a tech company in Cleveland. We had dinner at my favorite restaurant, my choice, my treat, and he looked at me with pride. "Grandma Maggie," he said, "you're kind of a badass." I laughed. "I learned from the best," I told him. "Thank you for teaching me Excel." He shook his head. "I taught you formulas. You taught yourself freedom." If this story resonated with you, please like this video and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Subscribe to Twisted ZYP Stories for more true stories of everyday people facing extraordinary circumstances. And remember, it's never too late to take control of your own life. You deserve to see the numbers. You deserve to understand your own finances. You deserve the truth. And you're smarter than anyone has ever given you credit for. Trust me on that. I know because I was you. And now, I'm free.